Zara's eyes opened slowly in the dark metal room. Her head hurt badly. She tried to move but felt cold metal around her wrists and ankles. Chains. Heavy chains that cut into her fur and skin. The air smelled wrong. It smelled like fear and pain. And something else she did not know. The floor under her was cold metal that vibrated with the ship's engines. She was not our home planet anymore. "Mama?" came a small voice from the darkness. Zara's heart jumped. Her cubs. Where were her cubs? Pip? Mira? "Nox," she called out, her voice rough and dry. "Mama, we're here," said another voice. It was Myra, her middle child. "We're all here, but we can't move." Zara's eyes started to work better in the dark. She could see her 3 cubs chained to the wall across from her. Pip was the oldest at 12 years old. His orange fur was dirty, and his green eyes looked scared. Mira was 10, with gray fur like her mother. Little Nox was only 6, the baby of the family. His black fur was matted, and he was crying quietly. "It's okay, my babies," Zara said, trying to sound calm. "Mama is here. Everything will be okay." But she knew it was not okay. She remembered now. The attack on their farm. The big ships that came from the sky. The lizard people with their terrible weapons and loud voices. The Krell. Zara and her family lived on a quiet farm on the planet Valthera. They grew food and raised animals. It was a peaceful life. The Velthani people did not like war. They had no big weapons or strong armies. They just wanted to live in peace, but peace did not protect them from the Krell slave ships. Not the attack came in the morning. Zara was feeding the farm animals when she heard the terrible sound of engines above. She looked up and saw 3 large black ships coming down from the sky. They were ugly ships with sharp edges and glowing red lights. "Cubs, come inside now," she had shouted to her children who were playing in the field, but it was too late. The ships landed and the doors opened. Out came the Krell soldiers. They were tall lizard people with gray-green skin and yellow eyes. They carried energy weapons that made blue light when they fired. The Krell moved fast. They knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted slaves. Young, healthy slaves that they could sell for lots of money. Zara fought hard to protect her cubs. The Velthani were fast and strong. They had sharp claws and good reflexes. But the Krell had better weapons and more soldiers. They shot Zara with a stun weapon. The blue energy hit her and made her whole body go numb. She fell to the ground and could not move. She watched helplessly as the Krell grabbed her cubs and put them in metal cages. "Mama!" Nox had cried as they carried him away. That was the last thing Zara remembered before everything went black. Now she was here, in this dark prison room on a Krell ship. The ship was moving through space, taking them far away from home. Far away from everything they knew and loved. "Where are we going, Mama?" asked Pip. He was trying to be brave, but Zara could hear the fear in his voice. Before Zara could answer, heavy footsteps came from outside the room. The door opened with a loud clang. Light came in, making them all close their eyes. 3 Krell guards walked in. They were big and mean-looking. Their yellow eyes glowed in the dark. One of them was bigger than the others. He had many scars on his face and arms. This was Captain Vex, the leader of the ship. "Good, you're awake," Captain Vex said in his rough voice. He spoke in the common galactic language that most space travelers used. "I wanted to tell you about your future." Zara said nothing. She just stared at him with hate in her eyes. Captain Vex laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "You don't like me, Catwoman. That's good. Angry slaves fight better in the arena." "Arena?" Zara asked. "Yes, the fighting arena on Proxima Station. That's where adult Velthani go. People pay good money to watch Cat People fight and die. You're fast and strong. You'll make me rich before you die." Zara's blood turned cold, but Captain Vex was not done talking. "Your cubs will go somewhere else," he said, looking at the 3 young ones. "Rich people like to buy exotic pets, especially young ones that can be trained. They'll live in cages and do tricks for their masters." "No," Zara shouted, pulling hard at her chains. "You can't separate us. They're just children." Captain Vex stepped closer. "I can do whatever I want, Catwoman. You're my property now. All of you." The chains around Zara's wrists started to cut, deeper as she pulled at them. Her claws came out, sharp and dangerous. But the chains were too strong. "Please," she said, her voice breaking, "take me to the arena. Do whatever you want with me, but let my cubs go free." Captain Vex laughed again. "Free? Nobody goes free on my ship. You'll all be sold in 3 days when we reach Proxima Station." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and don't try to escape. The chains are made of durasteel. Even your claws can't cut through that." The door slammed shut. The room went dark again. Zara heard her cubs crying. Her heart felt like it was breaking. But she was not going to give up. She was their mother. She would find a way to save them. She started to examine the chains more closely. Captain Vex was right. Her claws could not cut through durasteel. But maybe she could find another way. The chains were old. The metal was worn in some places. If she worked very carefully, very quietly, maybe she could weaken them. It would take time. But she had timed out 3 days until they reached Proxima Station. 3 days to find a way to free her family. Zara began to work on the chains, using her claws to scrape at the worn metal. She worked slowly and quietly so the guards would not hear. "What are you doing, Mama?" whispered Myra. "I'm getting us out of here," Zara whispered back. "Just wait and see." Outside, the ship flew through the darkness of space, carrying them toward their terrible fate. But Zara did not give up hope. She was a mother. She would fight until her last breath to save her cubs. The sound of her claws on metal was very quiet. But it was the sound of hope. The sound of a mother who would never stop fighting for her children. Even in the darkest place, even when everything seemed hopeless, love could find a way. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency signal came through. The lights on his ship's bridge started flashing red, and a loud beeping sound filled the air. "What's that?" asked Lisa Grant, his first officer. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and smart brown eyes. She had been Jake's friend for many years. Jake put down his coffee and walked to the control panel. He pressed some buttons and read the message on the screen. "It's a distress call," he said, "from the Valfani colony on Kepler 442b. Pete Adams looked up from his workstation. He was the ship's engineer, a thin man with messy red hair and oil stains on his shirt. "The cat people? What's wrong?" Jake read more of the message. His face became serious. "Krell raiders. They attacked the colony 2 hours ago." "Krell?" said Carol Stone, the ship's doctor. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "I thought they stayed in their own space." "Not anymore," Jake said. "They're getting bolder. Taking slaves from peaceful colonies." Lisa frowned. "Jake, we're just a cargo ship. We can't fight Krell warships." Jake looked at his crew. They were good people. They had been together for 3 years, carrying cargo from planet to planet. It was not exciting work, but it was honest work. The Star Runner was not a warship. It was an old cargo vessel that Jake had bought with his savings after leaving the Earth military. Pete had fixed it up and made it better, but it still had no big weapons or heavy armor. "We have to try," Jake said. "Those people need help. The Krell will kill us," Lisa said. "You know that, right?" Jake nodded. Maybe, but we can't just leave them. This was why Lisa respected Jake. He was not the smartest captain or the bravest fighter, but he always tried to do the right thing, even when it was dangerous. Set course for Kepler 442b, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. The Star Runner turned toward the Valfani colony. The ship's engines worked hard to push them through space as fast as possible. As they traveled, Jake thought about the Krell. They were a mean species from the far side of the galaxy. They looked like big lizards, and they loved to fight and steal. Most other species were afraid of them. Humans were new to space travel. They had only been flying between stars for 50 years. Many alien species thought humans were weak and stupid. They did not understand why humans would risk their lives to help strangers. But Jake understood. It was what made humans special. They cared about others, even people they had never met. "We're getting close," Pete said from his station. "I can see the colony on the sensors." Jake looked at the screen. The colony was small, just a few hundred people who grew food and raised animals. They were peaceful people who never hurt anyone. "Take us down," Jake said. The Star Runner flew down through the planet's atmosphere. As they got closer, they could see the damage. Buildings were broken. Fires were burning. Some of the fields were destroyed. They landed near the colony's main building. Jake and his crew put on their protective suits and went outside. The first thing they saw was an old Vilfani man sitting on the ground. He was crying. His orange fur was dirty, and he had cuts on his arms. "Are you hurt?" asked Carol, kneeling beside him. The old man looked up. His green eyes were full of sadness. "They took them," he said in broken Galactic Common. "They took our children." More survivors came out of the damaged buildings. There were about 30 people left out of the colony's 200 residents. Most of them were old or injured. "What happened here?" Jake asked. An older Velfani woman stepped forward. She was the colony leader, a gray-furred female named Elder Kira. "3 Krell ships came this morning," she said. "They had slave chains and prison cages. They took all the young adults and children." "How many?" Lisa asked. 47 people, Elder Kira said, "including whole families." Jake felt angry. The Krell were bullies who picked on people who could not fight back. It made him sick. "Which way did they go?" he asked. Elder Kira pointed to the sky. "They went toward the edge of the system, toward the junk point to Proxima Station." Jake knew about Proxima Station. It was a bad place where criminals and slavers went to buy and sell people. No good person ever went there. "We have to stop them," he said. "How?" asked Pete. "Our ship has no weapons." Jake smiled. "We'll think of something." "We always do." This was true. Humans were good at solving problems in new ways. They did not always have the best weapons or the fastest ships, but they were creative. "Their ship will be slow with all those prisoners," Jake said. "We can catch up to them." "And then what?" Lisa asked. "Ask them nicely to give the prisoners back." "Something like that," Jake said. They said goodbye to the survivors and promised to try to bring back their people. Elder Kira gave Jake a small device. "This is a Valfani tracking beacon," she said. "It will help you find our people among the stars." Back on the Star Runner, Jake and his crew prepared for the chase. Pete worked on the engines to make them faster. Carol prepared medical supplies for the rescued prisoners. Lisa studied star charts to find the best route. Jake sat in his captain's chair and thought about what they were doing. They were 4 humans in an old cargo ship, chasing after dangerous aliens with superior weapons. Most people would say it was stupid. Maybe it was. But Jake had learned something in his years in space. Sometimes the right thing to do was also the stupid thing to do. "Course laid in," Lisa said. "Engines ready," Pete reported. "Medical bay prepared," Carl added. Jake nodded. Let's go save some people. The Star Runner jumped into hyperspace, chasing after the Krell slavers. In the swirling lights of faster-than-light travel, Jake hoped they would not be too late. Behind them, the damaged colony grew smaller until it disappeared. Ahead of them, somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 47 innocent people waited. For Rescue. Jake had no idea how they would save them. But he knew they had to try. It was what humans did. It was what made them special, in a galaxy full of creatures who had forgotten how to care about others. The hunt had begun. 2 days later, the Star Runner found the Krell ship. Pete had been tracking the ion trail left by the enemy vessel's engines. The trail led them through 3 star systems before they finally caught up. There it is, Pete said, pointing at his screen. The Bloodfang, big, ugly, and full of weapons. Jake looked at the image on the main screen. The Krell ship was 3 times bigger than the Star Runner. It had thick armor and many weapon ports. If they tried to fight it directly, they would lose in seconds. We need a different plan, Jake said. Lisa nodded. We can't fight that thing, but maybe we don't have to. Jake had been thinking about this problem for 2 days. How do you rescue people from a ship that can destroy you easily? The answer was simple. You don't fight the ship. You trick it. Krell are mean, but they're also greedy, Jake said. They love to trade and make deals, especially with species they think are weak. You want to pretend to trade with them? Carol asked. Exactly. We'll make them think we have something they want. While we're talking to them, we'll find a way to get on their ship. Pete looked worried. That's very dangerous, Jake. If they find out we're lying, they'll kill us. They'll kill us anyway if we do nothing, Jake said. At least this way, we have a chance. Jake had learned to speak some Krell language during his military days. It was a hard language full of hissing sounds and growling noises. But he knew enough to have a basic conversation. Lisa, you and Carol will hide in the maintenance tubes when we dock, Jake said. Pete and I will go aboard their ship and distract them. You two will find the prisoners and free them. How will we find them? Lisa asked. Follow the sound. Carol said, scared people make noise, especially children. It was a simple plan, maybe too simple. But sometimes simple plans worked best. The Star Runner moved closer to the Bloodfang. Jake opened a communication channel to the Krell ship. Krell vessel, this is Captain Morrison of the human ship Star Runner, he said in broken Krell language. We wish to trade with you. For a long moment there was no answer. Then a rough voice came through the speaker. Human ship, this is Captain Vex of the Bloodfang. What do you want? We have rare human artifacts, Jake said. Ancient weapons from our home world, very valuable. This was not true. The artifacts were actually small explosive devices that Pete had made from spare parts. But they looked old and mysterious. Humans have no ancient weapons, Captain Vex said. You are new to space. Jake smiled. That's what we want others to think. We have been in space much longer than we admit. We have secrets. There was silence. Again, Jake could imagine Captain Vex thinking about it. The Krell loved secrets and hidden treasures. Show me these weapons, Captain Vex said finally. I will bring them to your ship, Jake said, but only a small sample. If you want more, we negotiate. Very well. You may dock, but no tricks, human. My ship has many weapons. No tricks, Jake lied. The Star Runner moved to the Krell ship's docking bay. It was a huge space filled with smaller ships and cargo containers. Most of the containers probably held stolen goods and captured slaves. Jake and Pete put on their spacesuits and gathered the fake artifacts. Lisa and Carol hid in the maintenance tubes that connected the 2 ships. They would wait until Jake and Pete were inside, and sneak aboard the Bloodfang. Remember, Jake said to his crew, we're just simple traders. We don't know anything about the attack on the colony. Got it, Pete said. He was nervous, but he was trying to be brave. Jake and Pete walked across the docking bay to the Bloodfang's entrance. Krell guards were waiting for them. The guards were big and scary, with sharp teeth and glowing yellow eyes. Follow us, one guard said. Captain, Vex is waiting. They walked through the corridors of the Krell ship. The walls were metal and painted dark red. The air smelled like oil and something else Jake did not want to identify. Captain Vex was waiting in a large room filled with stolen treasures. He was bigger than the other Krell, with many scars on his face and arms. His yellow eyes looked at Jake with suspicion. So human, Captain Vex said. Show me these ancient weapons. Jake opened his bag and took out one of Pete's fake artifacts. It looked like a small metal cylinder with strange markings on it. This is a plasma disruptor from old Earth, Jake said. Very rare, very dangerous. Captain Vex picked up the device and examined it. It looks like junk. That's the point, Jake said. We made them look ordinary so others would not steal them. Pete nodded. My grandfather gave it to me. He said it could destroy a whole city. This was completely false, but Pete said it with a straight face. Jake was proud of him. Captain. Vex was interested now. How much do you want for it? Not money, Jake said. We want information. About trade routes. About where to find valuable cargo. While they talked, Lisa and Carol were crawling through the maintenance tubes. The tubes were small and dark, but they led all through the ship. Carol had studied this ship's design and knew where the prison area would be. This way, she whispered to Lisa. They crawled for what felt like hours. The tubes were hot and smelly. Sometimes they could hear Krell voices through the walls. Finally, they heard something different. Crying. The sound of frightened children. There, Lisa whispered. That has to be the prison area. They found a maintenance panel and carefully opened it. Below them was a large room filled with cages and chains. And there, in the corner, they saw them, the Velfani prisoners. Lisa saw Mother Cat chained to the wall with 3 young cubs across from her. The mother was working on something with her claws, trying to weaken her chains. That must be Zara, Lisa whispered. Elder Kira had told them about her. A brave mother who had fought hard to protect her children. There were other prisoners, too. Men and women from different species, all chained and waiting to be sold. We need to get down there, Carol said. But first, they had to wait for Jake's signal. The plan was for him to create a distraction so the guards would leave the prison area. Back in the treasure room, Jake was getting ready to spring his trap. He had been talking to Captain Vex for an hour, showing him different fake artifacts and telling made-up stories about their power. I have one more thing to show you, Jake said. But this one is very dangerous. You should clear the room. Captain Vex laughed. I am not afraid of human weapons. As you wish, Jake said. He took out what looked like an ancient bomb. This is a quantum destabilizer. It can destroy matter at the molecular level. Pete stepped back, pretending to be scared. Jake, maybe we should not show him that one. It's fine, Jake said, as long as nobody touches the activation switch. He pointed to a red button on the device. Captain Vex leaned closer to look at it. What happens if I press it? He asked. You don't want to know, Jake said. Captain Vex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. I think I do. He reached for the button. Jake did not try to stop him. This was exactly what he wanted. Captain Vex pressed the button. The device beeped 3 times, then exploded. It was not a big explosion, just enough to damage the room's lights and electronics. But it was loud and bright and scary. Alarms started going off all over the ship. Emergency lights flashed red. Krell voices shouted orders through the corridors. What did you do? Captain. Vex roared. Jake pretended to be shocked. I told you it was dangerous. The quantum field must have destabilized. More explosions echoed through the ship as Pete's other devices went off. He had hidden them around the room while Jake was talking. Guards, Captain Vex shouted. Arrest these humans. But the guards were confused and blinded by the flashing lights. In the chaos, Jake and Pete ran for the door. Down in the prison area, Lisa and Carol heard the alarms and knew it was time to move. They dropped down from the maintenance tube and landed in the middle of the prisoner area. We're here to rescue you, Lisa said to the surprised prisoners. Stay calm and we'll get you out. She ran to Zara's chains and began cutting them with a plasma torch. The metal was thick, but the torch was hot. Who are you? Zara asked. Humans, Carol said as she worked on the cub's chains. We came from your colony. We're here to take you home. Zara's eyes filled with tears. You came for us? But how? You're so few. Sometimes few is enough, Lisa said as the first chain broke. The rescue had begun. The plasma torch cut through Zara's chains with a bright blue flame. As soon as she was free, Zara jumped up and ran to her cubs. Her muscles were stiff from being chained for 3 days, but she moved like a wild animal protecting her young. Mama! Little Knox cried as Carol cut his chains. I'm here, baby, Zara said, hugging him tight. Mama's here. Lisa worked fast to free the other prisoners. There were 23 Velfani in the prison room, plus several aliens from other species. All of them had been captured by the Krell for the slave markets. Can you fight? Lisa asked. Zara's green eyes burned with anger. Yes, I can fight. Good. We're going to need all the help we can get. The alarms were still going off throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Krell voices shouted orders in their harsh language. Carol finished freeing the last prisoner, an old Velfani man who could barely stand. We need to get to the docking bay, she said. Our ship is waiting there. What about the human males? Asked Pip, Zara's oldest cub. The ones who came to save us? They're creating a distraction, Lisa said. We'll meet them at the ship. But, as they prepared to leave the prison room, the door burst open. 5 Krell guards ran in, carrying energy weapons. The prisoners are escaping, one of them shouted. The guards raised their weapons, but Zara was faster. She leaped across the room like a shadow, her claws extended. The first guard went down. Before he could fire, the other freed prisoners joined the fight. The Velfani might be peaceful farmers, but they were also naturally fast and strong. When their families were threatened, they became dangerous. Lisa and Carol used their human weapons to help. They had small pistols that fired plasma bolts. The weapons were not very powerful, but they were enough to hurt the Krell. The fight was over quickly. The Krell were tough, but they were not expecting the prisoners to fight back so hard. This way, Lisa said, leading the group toward the door. Stay together and stay quiet. They moved through the corridors of the Krell ship. The walls were dark red metal, and the air was thick with smoke from the explosions. Emergency lights cast strange shadows everywhere. Zara stayed close to her cubs, but she also helped the other prisoners. She was a natural leader, and the others followed her without question. How far to your ship? She asked Lisa. Not far, Lisa said, but we have to go through the main corridor. There might be more guards. They reached a corner, and Lisa looked around it carefully. The corridor ahead was empty, but she could hear Krell voices in the distance. Now, she whispered. The group moved quickly down the corridor. The older prisoners moved slower, but the younger ones helped them. Zara carried little Knox on her back, so he could keep up. They were halfway to the docking bay when they heard footsteps. Behind them, heavy Krell footsteps, moving fast. "Run!" Carol shouted, but running was hard with so many people. The old prisoners could not move fast enough. The Krell were catching up. Zara made a decision. She put Nox down and turned to face the approaching guards. "Keep going," she told the others. "I'll hold them off." "Mama, no." Myra cried. "Take care of your brothers," Zara said. "I'll be right behind you." Lisa grabbed Zara's arm. "We don't leave people behind. That's not how humans do things." "Then we fight together," Zara said. 6 Krell guards came around the corner, their weapons ready. But Lisa and Zara were ready too. The fight was harder this time. The corridor was narrow, so they could not use their speed advantage. But Zara was angry, and angry mothers were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. She fought like a wild animal, using her claws and teeth. Her fur was torn and bloody, but she did not stop fighting. Lisa fired her weapon as fast as she could. Carol helped the other prisoners get to safety, while the fight continued. One of the Krell got past Zara and reached for little Nox. But Pip, the oldest cub, jumped in front of his little brother. At 12 years old, he was already developing. His adult claws. "Don't touch my brother," Pip shouted, slashing at the Krell's hand. The Krell roared in pain and anger. He raised his weapon to hurt Pip, but Zara was there first. She knocked the weapon away and sent the Krell crashing into the wall. "Nobody hurts my cubs," she growled. The fight ended when Pete's sabotage finally worked. The ship's lights went out completely, leaving them in darkness. The Krell could not see well in the dark, but the Velthani could. "This way," Zara said, leading them through the darkness. They reached the docking bay just as Jake and Pete arrived from the other direction. Both humans were breathing hard and had cuts on their faces. "Did you get them?" Jake asked. "Most of them," Lisa said. "But there are still more prisoners on the ship." Jake looked at the group of freed slaves. 23 people, including 3 young cubs. It was not everyone, but it was a start. "We'll come back for the others," he promised. "No," said Captain Vex's voice from the darkness. "You will not." The Krell captain stepped into the docking bay with 20 armed guards. His scarred face was angry, and his yellow eyes glowed with hate. "You think you can trick me, human?" he said. "You think you can steal my property?" "They're not property," Jake said. "They're people," Captain Vex laughed. "Humans and your stupid ideas about freedom. You will all be slaves now. You will all be sold." The Krell guards raised their weapons. There were too many of them. Jake and his crew had fought hard, but they were trapped. Zara stepped forward. Her fur was bloody and torn, but she stood tall and proud. "If you want to hurt these humans," she said, "you'll have to go through me first." The other freed prisoners stepped up beside her. They were scared, but they were also grateful. The humans had risked everything to save them. "And me," said Pip, standing next to his mother. "And me," said Nara. Even little Nox stepped forward. His small claws extended. Captain Vex snarled. "You cannot win. There are too many of us." "Maybe," Jake said, raising his own weapon. "But we're going to try." The final battle was about to begin. In the darkness of the docking bay, humans and Velthani stood together against their enemies. It was not about winning or losing anymore. It was about doing what was right. It was about protecting the innocent and fighting for freedom. It was about proving that some things were worth dying for. The Krell moved forward, and the real fight began. The battle in the docking bay was like nothing Jake had ever seen. The Krell guards fired their energy weapons, filling the air with blue light. But the humans and Velthani fought back with everything they had. Zara moved like lightning in the eye. Darkness. Her claws flashed as she jumped from enemy to enemy. Even wounded, she was faster than any of the Krell guards. Jake stayed close to her, using his military training to help plan their attacks. He would point out weak spots in the enemy lines, and Zara would strike with deadly precision. Behind. You! Jake shouted, warning her about a guard with a big weapon. Zara spun around and knocked the weapon from the Krell's hands. Then Jake finished him with a shot from his plasma pistol. They made a good team. The humans' tactical thinking worked perfectly with the Velthani's natural fighting skills. But there were too many enemies. For every Krell they defeated, 2 more took his place. The freed prisoners were brave, but most of them were farmers, not fighters. "We can't win this way," Lisa said, firing her weapon at a group of advancing guards. Pete was working on something at his portable computer. "Give me 30 seconds, he said. "I can shut down their weapons with an electromagnetic." "Pulse, we don't have 30 seconds, Carol said. She was helping wounded prisoners behind a pile of cargo containers. Captain Vex was getting angry. His guards were supposed to be the best fighters in the galaxy, but they were being beaten by a small group of humans and escaped slaves. "Enough!" he roared. "Kill them all!" He raised his own weapon, a big energy rifle that could destroy a whole group of people with one shot. He pointed it at Jake and Zara. "Die, human!" he shouted, but before he could fire, little Nox did something very brave. The 6-year-old cub ran out from behind the cargo containers where he was supposed to hide. "Don't hurt my mama," Nox shouted, jumping at Captain Vex's legs. The little cub was no danger to the big Krell captain, but his action distracted Vex for just a moment. That moment was enough. Zara leaped through the air with a wild cry. Her claws found Captain Vex's throat before he could turn his weapon on her cub. "Nobody threatens my children," she growled. Captain Vex fell to the ground, his weapon clattering across the metal floor. The other Krell guards stopped fighting when they saw their captain defeated, but the battle was not over yet. More Krell were coming from deeper in the ship. Soon the docking bay would be full of enemies. "Pete, how's that pulse coming?" Jake asked. "Almost ready," Pete said, his fingers flying over his computer. "Just need to connect to the ship's main power grid." "I'll help," said an old Velthani prisoner named Kalen. "I used to be an engineer before they captured me." Together, Pete and Kalen worked on the electromagnetic pulse device. It would shut down all the electronic weapons in the area, including the Krell guns. "There," Pete said, ready to fire. "Do it," Jake ordered. Pete pressed the button. A wave of electromagnetic energy spread out from his device. All the lights in the docking bay went out. The Krell weapons stopped working. Even some of the ship's systems shut down. "Now," Jake shouted. "Everyone to the Star Runner." In the darkness, the freed prisoners ran toward Jake's ship. Lisa and Carol helped the wounded ones move faster. The children stayed close to their parents, but the Krell were not finished yet. Even without their energy weapons, they were still dangerous. They had claws and teeth, and they were very angry. A group of guards blocked the path to the Star Runner. Their leader was a big Krell with metal teeth and scars all over his body. "You will not escape," he said. "We will tear you apart with our bare hands." Jake raised his own hands, ready to fight, but Zara stepped in front of him. "You want to fight?" she said to the Krell leader. "Fight me." What happened next was like watching a force of nature. Zara had been protecting her cubs for 3 days. All her anger and fear came out at once. She moved faster than Jake thought possible. Her claws were like knives in the darkness. The Krell leader was big and strong, but he had never fought a mother defending her children. The fight lasted only seconds. When it was over, the Krell leader was on the ground, and Zara was standing over him, breathing hard. "Anyone else?" she asked the other guards. They backed away. They had never seen anything like this small cat woman who fought like a demon. "Let's go," Jake said softly. They reached the Star Runner just as more Krell reinforcements arrived. Jake's crew got everyone aboard as fast as they could. "Engines ready," Pete reported from the pilot's seat. "Get us out of here," Jake ordered. The Star Runner lifted off from the Krell ship and flew toward the docking bay exit. Behind them, the Bloodfang was trying to start its engines, but Pete's sabotage had damaged too many systems. "We're clear," Lisa said as they escaped into open space. Jake sat down in his captain's chair and looked around the ship. It was crowded with rescued prisoners, but they were safe. Most of them were crying with relief and joy. Zara was hugging her 3 cubs, tears running down her furry cheeks. "We're free," she whispered. "We're really free." Little Knox looked up at Jake. "Thank you, human captain. You saved us." Jake smiled. "You helped save yourselves. You are very brave." "Will we see you again?" asked Pip. "I hope so," Jake said. As the Star Runner flew back toward the Velthani colony, Jake thought about what had happened. They had saved 23 people from slavery. It was not everyone on the Krell ship, but it was a start. More importantly, they had proven something. Humans might be new to space, but they had something that many older species had lost. They still believed in doing the right thing, even when it was dangerous. "Jake," Zara said, walking over to his chair. Her wounds were bandaged, but she was still beautiful in her fierce way. "Yes? Why did you come for us?" "You don't even know us." Jake thought about the question. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves to be free. Because somebody had to try." Zara nodded slowly. "On my world, we have a saying. The pack that hunts together stays together. You and your crew are part of our pack now, forever." She put her hand on Jake's shoulder. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. 3 days later, the Star Runner arrived at the Velthani colony. The survivors were waiting for them. When they saw their rescued friends and family members, there was crying and laughing and celebration. Elder Kira hugged Jake with tears in her eyes. "You brought them home," she said. "You brought our children home. We couldn't save everyone," Jake said. "I'm sorry." "You saved who you could," Elder Kira said. "That is enough. That is everything." The story of the rescues spread quickly through both human and Velthani space. Soon, other species heard about the small human crew that had defeated a Krell warship. To save people they had never met, some aliens were surprised. They had thought humans were weak and foolish. But maybe they were wrong. Maybe humans had something that made them special. 6 months later, Jake received a message from the Velthani government. They wanted to make a formal alliance with humanity. They would share their farming knowledge and peaceful technology. In return, humans would help protect other Velthani colonies from raiders. It was the beginning of a beautiful friendship between 2 very different species. Jake kept the Star Runner and continued to carry cargo between the stars. But now he also carried something else. Hope. Hope that the galaxy could be a better place if people were willing to help each other. Zara and her cubs settled on a new Velthani colony, far from Krell space. But she never forgot the brave humans who had saved her family. She told the story to her cubs every night before bed. "Remember," she would say to Pip, Mira, and Knox, "there are good people in the galaxy. People who will risk everything to help strangers. People who believe that freedom is worth fighting for. And in the vast darkness of space, other slavers heard the story too. They learned that humans were not as weak as they looked. They learned that some species would fight back, no matter the odds. The galaxy had become a little more dangerous for bullies and slavers, and a little safer for everyone else. Jake Morrison and his crew continued their work, carrying cargo and hope to worlds throughout human space. They never looked for trouble, But when trouble found innocent people, they were ready, because that's what humans do. They help. They fight for what's right. They never give up. And sometimes that's enough to change the galaxy. The end.